bone in versus bone out. Is it worth paying more just for the weight of a bone? Well, today I've come up with a test to find out. Whether you're grilling a tomahawk steak or an example like today's bone-in pork shoulder, you're paying more from the butcher for the weight of the bone than you are if you were just to get a roast of only meat. But this is an argument that has divided friends, family, and the internet community for years. And I found the best way to settle these things is with a good old-fashioned head-to-head taste test. So I went to my local butcher and I asked for two, as close as he could find, pork shoulders. The only difference, one of them he's deboned and the other one is as God intended it, right from the whole hog with the bone fully intact. And I'm gonna smoke them on the same grill with the same smoke and the same techniques to find out which is best, and or if you can actually appreciate a difference between the two. So next time you head to your local butcher, you know, should I pay and get more meat or get more flavor by leaving the bone in? Let me fill you in on the details. So while the ultimate outcome of today's test is to answer the question once and for all, bone in versus bone out, these two shoulders are serving a very practical purposes. I'm cooking them as part of a menu that I'm doing for my niece's wedding. So we have already about 30 pounds of carne asada, about 25-30 pounds of pulled chicken, and this is the piece de resistance, the last part of the puzzle for some pulled pork carnitas, and all share the same flavor ingredients using my Tex-Mex dry rub. This is one that I've developed for friends and family, and I've also now posted on the website, and I'm using it as part of this cook. So let me take you back 2 days ago when I got our Tex-Mex rub on, and these have sat uncovered in the refrigerator with the rub on for 48 hours. If we were doing a thin cut of steaks or a pork tenderloin or something like that, overnight dry brine is plenty enough. But in the size of these roasts, giving extra time for the salt to work its magic not only is going to make for a more tender, juicy, and flavorful roast, these two shoulders also came with the rind on. And so by giving them a little bit more time with salt, the salt is going to extract as much moisture as possible, allowing the refrigerator to dry that out. And dry is what we need in order to get a chance of developing some crackling, almost a bacon-like texture gonna be mixed into our pulled pork shred. And that is exactly what I'm after with today's test. So let me take you back 48 hours ago, how to prepare my Tex-Mex dry rub. And when you rejoin me present day, I'll walk you through the game plan of how we're gonna set up our smoker to turn out some amazing pulled pork and ultimately answer the question once and for all, is it worth paying more for bone in versus bone out? Okay, let's get ready to make our Tex-Mex rub. The flavor profile that I'm going for is something very similar to Holy Voodoo by Meat Church. This isn't a Holy Voodoo bottle, and there's a couple ingredients that I don't have that Holy Voodoo would have, including things like MSG, terminado sugar, as well as dehydrated jalapeno powder. But this is gonna give us a lot of the same great taste, a little bit less sugar, and it's using less expensive ingredients that you can find around your house. So let's get ready to make it up. I'm gonna make a recipe that will come close to filling a larger bottle, but you can cut this in half for something like a smaller shaker. Let's get started with 1 cup of Diamond Crystal kosher salt. Next, we need 10 tablespoons of smoked paprika, 6 tablespoons of granulated garlic powder, 6 tablespoons of brown sugar. Next, we need 3 tablespoons of fresh cracked black pepper, and using my pepper can in this measurement, a full one of these caps is 2 tablespoons. So I'll take you fast forward while I crack up some fresh pepper. Half cap more. Add our pepper. Next up will be some oregano followed by onion powder. We're gonna start with 2 tablespoons of dried oregano, 1 tablespoon of onion powder. And again, this is granulated, not the really fine powder. Down into the teaspoon range, we're almost there, team. So we'll start with 2 teaspoons of chili powder, 2 more teaspoons of cayenne pepper, cumin, and last but not least, celery seed. Bring it close, show you our layers. We'll give this a shake to make sure everything's fully incorporated. That looks good. This dry rub recipe, along with all my other dry rub recipes and written recipes, live on the Smoking Dad Barbecue website. Link is down in the description for after today's video. Now this is ready, let's get it on. For our setup, there's a couple things I don't know, which is the method that I have in mind for today's cook gonna work when I've doubled my capacity and I've got 2 massive butts sitting in front of me that I need to fit on the top rack of our extra large big green egg. But starting with what we do know, a couple things in rapid fire order. First, cold smoke tastes better. I've compared numerous different methods from pellet tubes to live fire wood splits, and I even had Cooper at Barry Barbecue, one of the top Texas monthly up and coming barbecue joints, name my food 10 out of 10, nothing you can improve on the smoke. So if Cooper says it's good, I believe it's good. I have also learned through a year-long CFD study that cooking higher in the dome is where more smoke and activity lives. And so we've got 3 heat sources of conduction, convection, and radiant energy, especially when I'm cooking with a large fat cap and skin on and I want to get some crisp. All those benefits live higher in our dome than they do lower down. And speaking of that CFD study and years of testing and experience, I know that my double indirect forces a fire in an energy efficient vessel like my big green egg Kamado in order to make that fire work harder, burn more fuel, and give me even more flavor. So that's what I know. Getting back to what we don't know is if these are gonna fit. So let's go over to the big green egg and I'll show you what I have in mind and we'll find out if we need to pivot. The reason that I want to do both on the same egg, even though I have another one available, is to reduce any variable. So we can just focus on, is there any flavor difference between bone in and bone out versus the smoked wood, the quantity of smoked wood, or any fire management differences that would be introduced if I were to double the capacity and fire up both eggs. Well, moment of truth is here. Let's go find out. Okay, well, only one way to find out. Let's do a test fit before I have a fire going and find out the hard way that they're not going to fit. So let's grab our shoulders, do a quick little test fit here. Let's find out if I get this closed without them touching. Peek inside, looks good. So the only compromise that I can see with this setup is, unlike before when we're using just one roast, I can position it directly over top of the deflector and be 100% protected. When I've gone for 2 in this configuration, the front side of the fire is exposed. So my game plan here is going to adjust simply versus just reaching in, throwing in a piece of wood. I'm gonna add the extra step of using a second deflector that when it's time to add a new piece of wood using some high heat gloves, I'll just slide it out of the way, throw it onto the fire, place the deflector back, and keep cooking. Again, I'm only gonna have to do this 3 to 4 times maximum for the cold smoke phase, and then we'll be set up normally going in an indirect setup. And I think that's gonna be, the juice will be worth the squeeze, if you know what I mean, in terms of the better smoke. So let's set up for our cold smoke fire. Got more than I wanted there. I only need a small handful of charcoal. Pull this deflector out so you can see what I'm looking at. So that's looking pretty good. So I've got about a handful of charcoal, which is gonna be just enough that I can place a wood split in front. If you'd like to preheat these are naturally seasoned wood splits. So they don't go up in smoke as quickly as something like kiln dried, but they pack way more flavor. And the whole point of doing this is to get way more flavor. I go into more details in my digital download smoking book if you want all the details, but the punchline here is this is about 11 to 12% relative humidity versus often the big box store is in the 0 to 5% humidity. So that's a big part of getting actual good smoke flavor on our pork butts. So I'll place this at the front for now while I grab my grill torch and start that fire. Let's fire it up. So in under a minute, we've got nice white ashed over coals. Let's drop on a piece of smoking wood. And you can see that wood is catching immediately. I'm gonna put probe number 1 and label this in the meter app. This is our boneless pork shoulder. And we'll track number 2 as our bone-in pork shoulder. Add that deflector. I'm gonna push it as far back towards the rear as I can, just like that, so that we don't have flames coming up through the back. Push that stone right to the back to block those flames. I'm gonna add in my next piece or two just at the front so they are pre-warming. And before I install that second deflector, just an important thing to see here is that we are getting open, visible flame. Even though we're gonna see white smoke, as you can see coming off of there, so long as we have open, visible flame, that is what is giving us the good flavors. And then I've got our next split or two at the front, preheating so that they combust immediately, just like this, when we add them. Slide in our front deflector for protection. Let's get smoking. The top of our regulator cap for the cold smoke phase is going to be all the way open so that we're getting as much natural draw as we can to get that good smoke. And then so we don't have a runaway fire, I will close the bottom draft door to about a pinky's width just to help limit the intake. And this will be enough draw when using one split at a time in order to continue to get that nice clean combustion. And in general, you could expect 30 to 45 minutes with a split that size.
So it's not lost on me that this is more complicated than just throwing in your deflectors and getting to the business of cooking. But if you're one of those folks that wants to close the gap between Kamado food and offset food by well over half, I find these steps to be absolutely worth it, to the point where the uninformed may not be able to tell the difference between the two. But for it to work, we do need to pay attention to a couple of other things. Even though I am seeing white smoke, I'll still put this in the good smoke category, as again, we're getting open visible flames versus just billowing white smoke. If it looks like a grease fire going on, this is not what we want to be putting on our food, that is creosote. Not really a great way to explain it, but the best thing I can leave you with is the smell. If it smells sweet and pleasant like a campfire, you're in the good books. This is good white smoke. If that white smoke smells like steam and wet wood, this is the bad creosote smell. So if you're not sure when you see white smoke coming out of the top of your regulator cap, just give it a bit of a waft and it'll give you all the information you need to know. Is this the good white smoke or the bad white smoke? How do I avoid the bad white smoke? Well, overfilling the charcoal basket with a bunch of wood is going to be the #1 issue that is going to cause white smoke. The second thing is how we set up, or should I say when we set up for this method. We can get away with this with a nice cold Kamado because there's no energy inside of our big green egg at this point. And so by placing a small coal bed and a piece of wood, the dome and everything is trying to suck some of that energy out of the fire and start to trap it for our radiant energy that we're going to use later in our cook. But because of this, our draw is higher at this point than any other point throughout the cook. If I were to do this at the end of the day with the dome fully heat soaked, the base fully heat soaked, our green egg is just humming along now, barely using any energy, I will not be able to burn a piece of wood in clean open combustion and hold temperatures. One of two things will happen. It'll either increase our temperature and we'll go racing to much higher than what we want because of that open combustion, or we have to shut it down so much to the point we're smoldering and then we're back to that bad white smoke that I was talking about earlier on. So this is the one and only time that we can take advantage of that extra draw, that extra convection energy in order to burn nice clean wood. And if you've not tried it, I would encourage you, give this a go. Everybody, thousands of people have reached out. Let me know in the comments. This has turned out their best ribs, pulled pork, and or brisket on their big green eggs and Kamados they've ever had. And I'm so confident based on thousands of people along with my own testing and even places when I got to cook for one of Texas Monthly's hottest joints saying this is 10 out of 10 as good as you can do. I think you're absolutely going to love it. So our next step, I'm going to continue adding some wood splits, as I mentioned, every 30 to 40 minutes, only for the first maximum 2 hours, and then we're going to dump in some charcoal. So I'll rejoin you in about 2 hours time when we're ready to switch from cold smoking to hot smoking.
Well, I know I said earlier that I was adding a little bit more work, but this turned out to be incredibly easy. If I show you the meter chart, I only needed to add fresh wood splits once, and that got me 2 hours of cold smoking well below 200 degrees Fahrenheit. We stayed in about the 160 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit range, and I am getting some amazing clean white smoke. And by clean white smoke, I don't mean the white, thick, billowy stuff, but the actual sweet aroma of a real wood fire, imparting some incredible smelling. And even if you take a sneak peek at this point, the 2 hour mark, some great smoke starting to be formed on our 2 pork shoulders. But now that that's done, this has been relatively simple adding wood once, it's time to go for an even easier approach. We're gonna go hands-free by transitioning to our hot smoke methods. So let's come nice and close. We're gonna transition our big green egg from a cold smoke machine into hot smoking. Okay, we're ready to transition to hot smoking. Optional, but highly recommended is to actually remove our pork butts while I do this transition so I don't get any bad smoke from fresh charcoal being added. So I'm just gonna pull off the top of the expander, set it aside for a second. And you can see we've got nice combustion, completely burned through almost everything that I've added. So know what I'm gonna do now, take you fast forward while I place this last piece that I had on the bottom, cover that up with some fresh charcoal, and then once again use our Grill Blazer grill gun to get this burning nice and hot and quick so we don't get any bad smoke and we can get these shoulders back on the green egg as quickly as possible. Put our deflector stones back in. Some spacer, you can use some bolts or ceramic spacers if you have them for an air gap, as I'm gonna go for a double indirect setup. Our convector, which now has about a finger's gap in between the two stones. That should be good. This will allow me to fit underneath. I can't get away if I was cooking on the primary grate, but I can fit something like the Kick-Ash Baskets version of their drip pan, which has little feet. When we're doing 2 pork shoulders like this, we're gonna get a lot of fat rendering. So those feet are gonna keep the pan up off of the stones. Even though I know in a double indirect setup, I'm gonna remove nearly 200 degrees Fahrenheit from the stone sitting directly below our food, and also is true for our fat drippings. We don't want the smell of burning fat coming back up and flavoring our finished pulled pork product. And so by using something with a bit of an air gap, we're going to eliminate that problem. Put the pork back on. And we're ready to keep cooking. Okay, so we now have everything on our big green egg. In hindsight here, the double indirect, I have a couple different setups available in my digital download. I maybe forgot about the plate setter or the convector, depending on when you bought yours, has the raised legs. And when I already have a set of deflectors underneath there, I'm eating into the raised rack of the expanders. That was a little tricky to get to close in order to get it to fit over the front. If I could do that over again when everything wasn't hot, I maybe would have just dropped a pizza stone on top of those deflectors and solved that issue. If you want more setup options for large, extra large eggs, so Primos, Kamado Joes, I have digital downloads on the website that go into vent settings, the science of smoking wood, along with a whole bunch of different double indirect setups. But the too long didn't read version here is not only have I heard from thousands of people letting me know that they made their best barbecue ever with double indirect, this is allowing us to burn a cleaner, hotter fire, make an energy efficient grill like the big green egg work harder, and fuel is flavor, and that is what we're after. Plus, as an added benefit, since I'm using a charcoal basket, I'll be able to break some of those same wood splits into smaller pieces, almost slivers, slide them into the ashtray, and take advantage of those hot coals and embers falling down, which will cause those to combust and impart more smoke. So I don't need to open anything else unless we need to spray later on in the day, in which case, if I see something drying out, I'll go for a mixture of apple cider vinegar and water, half and half, in order to keep everything nice and dry. I'm not super worried about that because we have not only the fat cap, but the rind on that fat cap. So if I get a little bit of crispy bits, I really want to get that incorporated into the pulled pork. So we get a mixture of crunchy, almost bacon-like texture, along with the fat cap going to render and protect the meat underneath. And then we've got a drip tray to collect everything so we don't get an inferno of gray smoke, kind of burning fat smells to impart any unwanted flavors on our pork shoulders. So now you're all caught up on the game plan, I'll rejoin you a little bit later on. We're ready to move into our next step. Okay, nighttime is the right time. So our pork shoulders have been on the big green egg extra large for just over 12 hours, and they are now probing, according to the Chef's Temp X10, 195 degrees Fahrenheit. That is an important distinction for a couple reasons. But said simply, when I visited Texas, I discovered a secret that I think plays more dividends to the backyard griller and smoker than the overnight hot hold. This solves two major problems. One, as I mentioned, these were on for over 12 hours. And if you want to try and have something like a large pork shoulder or a brisket ready for dinner, that means it needs to be on your grill following this timeline well before 6 a.m. in order to have a chance of being done for 6 p.m. And that's not including the mandatory minimum rest of at least 2 hours. So that means 4 a.m. I don't like getting up at 4 a.m. Neither do a lot of other backyard pitmasters. So by adopting the hot hold, we solve the problem of hoping to have dinner ready for a set time, whether it's 6 p.m. and guests showing up and it's not even close to being done and you're in a panic. So you've ever had that situation where you're panicked and worried about, will my food be done? Whether it's a brisket or a pork shoulder like what we're doing today, the same can be true in terms of the guesswork of how long will that stall take and will it be ready for the time that our guests arrive. So that problem solved. The second problem is deleting the guesswork around what is probe tender. This is a skill that takes people a long time to learn. You can go from undercooked to overcooked in about a 30-minute window. So this is a nice edge. The same is true if you're running a barbecue joint. So you can completely solve the consistency issue by backing off when you take your large cuts off. By removing them at 195 degrees Fahrenheit, we go from trying to chip onto a small green in the middle of a water hazard to just going to a driving range and trying to get the ball on the fairway. This broadens our spectrum of landing spots from a very small, precise patch to an almost anybody can hit it. In fact, I think with this method, anybody can hit it. So I've set these up to come off at 195 degrees Fahrenheit, and they are sitting here hanging out in the outside as the evening is cooling off, no problem, for at least half an hour. And that is so that we don't overcook these. If I were to immediately wrap them in foil, it's gonna preserve the energy as the roast was coming up to temperature, and then put them in my oven for the overnight hot hold, we would potentially overshoot and overcook these. So this 30-minute, 40-minute window is absolutely essential before going in the overnight hot hold. In order to pull this off, my household oven, it doesn't go below 170 degrees Fahrenheit, but in the settings, buried deep in there, there's the ability to override that and adjust the temperature down to 150 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what I need for the hot hold. So check out your manual. This is something I was able to find online, and hopefully you're able to do the same, as there's two major benefits with the hot hold. So while I might need to wait 17 hours to shred into these and find out the answer to bone in versus bone out for our taste test, for you, the wait will go by just like that. Okay, our 17-hour overnight hot hold has just wrapped up, so it's time to pull them out and shred them. I'm gonna bring Sarah out for a blind test. She won't know which is which, but I'll let you know ahead of time on camera which of our Boston butts has the bone versus which one was deboned, so we can keep track. Can you, without any other information, actually appreciate or tell a difference for paying more to get the bone in your roast, or are you better off going for the maximum dollar for meat ratio the next time you head to your butcher? Let's shred them up, see how they did. I didn't mention this last night when I pulled these off. Maybe tired from the 12-hour cook. But you notice I try and fold the foil in an upwards direction. This is to try and limit the amount of juice or tallow, or I guess this case rendered lard, that would otherwise drip out of the package if this was upside down. So I've done my best to try and retain as much as possible that I'll be able to mix into our shred. So this one with the crisscross is our deboned roast. Pour any of that rendered fat back out. This has all just happened in the hot hold, so otherwise we would lose that flavor and juiciness. I got rid of the strings so Sarah doesn't have any indicator. So the left on the screen is the deboned roast. All right, moment of truth. Nice clean bone pull. Okay, on to the next. All right, these both pulled amazing. Let me go grab Sarah for our blind taste test. All right, are you hungry?
I am.
Yeah, well, you've been doing lots of taste tests lately.
I have, it's been great.
Today though, might be your toughest test yet.
Okay, they look really similar. Like, is there any difference between
There
these
is a
two
difference.
pans? Okay.
Maybe, or maybe not.
Okay.
You're gonna tell me.
Okay.
Do you have a preference on which one you want to start with?
This one.
Okay, sure. In front of me, ready?
Sure.
Grab some.
Does it? Okay.
No
we
sauce,
go.
anything else? We're
Cheers.
just going pure pork?
Yeah,
Cheers.
perfect.
We don't even know which is which yet.
But that's delicious.
right?
Yeah, it's good.
Any clues?
I have no idea what I'm even taking, other than the fact that it's pulled pork.
Are you sure? Mm-hmm. No, I'm just kidding. It is.
Okay, so let's try this one.
All right, let's grab a nice piece.
All right. Yeah, here, I'll take that.
yeah,
sure, why not?
Grab the same section. Not that it matters if I've shredded it all up.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay.
It's obvious, right?
No, it's not. It is a little. I loved that one.
Yeah, why?
It was good. I have no idea why. They're both great. This one's a little better, maybe. I don't even know if what I'm choosing or anything.
So, super close.
Okay.
2 nearly identical weighing Boston butts.
Okay.
Same seasoning.
Yeah.
Same smoke.
Okay.
Both double indirect. So we're not really comparing the smoke or the cook. We want to focus on the flavor and which one would you prefer? And is there a clue as to why?
They're so similar. This one, the flavor just hit me a little
Want to
bit
do it again?
better.
Just in case?
Okay.
Yeah. No, just to.
Am I wrong? Is that why?
There's no such thing as wrong.
Figure it out? Okay. There you
Just
go.
going
Cheers.
for even more. Cheers.
Okay. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see here. Except I probably shouldn't have bark because my last one didn't have bark. Here, I'll take that one. Cheers. I still like that one. Is that wrong?
I like that one too. That's also my favorite.
Yeah.
But splitting hairs.
Yeah. They're
Right?
close. Oh, yeah. They're very, very
Splitting
close.
hairs.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding when I said this might be your toughest assignment yet, because what we are comparing today
Okay.
is bone-in
Yep.
versus a bone-out roast. So when
Okay.
you pay for a roast with the bone-in, it costs a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It cooked a little bit slower. So one was about 15 minutes behind
Okay.
the other. Maybe again, the bone is providing some insulation.
Yeah.
Downside, if it's deboned, you can add seasoning on the inside. You get a little bit more seasoning. Don't know if that's coming through in anything that you're tasting. Do you want to guess which one had the bone in? Which one had the deboned?
Bone in?
Bone in.
So I did.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I said to you, I was like, it's not going to make a difference.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's your
whatever.
favorite. This actually is, now I will say, like, if we had to put a number in percentage, like how close? Like when we say close,
Yeah, they're close.
this is very close.
Yeah, it is close.
So like, are we 103%? Like 3% more?
No, I think it's a little more than that.
More than that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Like 5%.
5%.
It's still close, but
Yeah.
I think it's a little, yeah. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if you could taste 3%. So maybe 5% is needed
Yeah.
for a bit of a gradient. So this is our bone-in roast.
Okay.
And this, not surprisingly, confirms what I've had on our last couple cooks, where the bone-in roast, you pull that out, it came out like butter.
Yeah.
It's really clean. There's a little bit more juice in the foil pack. The shred on it was great. They both shredded incredible. But if I had to pick just one of these two,
Yeah.
I'm going that one for reasons that sometimes you can't even put your
Yeah,
finger on it
yeah.
to say, why is that better? But I like that one.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. I would not, like, if you found a great deal on a roast that didn't have a bone in it, I wouldn't hesitate to get it and make it. But this one just a little
Do you
bit
taste
more.
any extra seasoning on the inside?
Not really, no.
I don't think that added anything either.
No.
It's a big,
Yeah,
roast.
it's a big roast.
And that gets divided over a large area. But I think
Yes.
given the two, I would take the juiciness of this one.
100%. Yeah.
Well, thanks for helping us settle this debate that has divided friends, family, and the internet for years. Maybe I made that
A
up.
little bit.
Okay, well, definitely the internet.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe not
I
so much.
believe that.
So next time we go to Costco or our butcher, definitely be looking for the bone-in variety. Let me know down in the comments if we should do the same thing with tomahawks and
Okay,
ribeyes.
yeah.
Mostly because I want a tomahawk. It's my favorite steak. That's
Of
it
course
for
you
today.
do.
That's it for today, though. I'm James from Smoky Dad Barbecue signing off. Remember, don't be afraid to fire it up. One more.